So now let's set up the Veil framework. We need to do that by /setup.sh, and we will click yes here to install the Veil evasion. You will note it's telling me that the wine package and the Ming package is not available. We can install those in the following manner. What we need to do is install the EPEL repository. So it's yum install epel, and let's have a look. It's got nothing to do. Let's do a search. So yum search for epel, and let's see what the name is called. It's called epel release. So let me copy that, and let's do a yum install for this particular name, and let's see how the install works. And hopefully this works. The EPEL repository contains some extra repositories and packages that the Veil framework will require. So let's see, we have installed the EPEL release here. We wanted to do a yum update to make sure all the files are updated again. So we have the latest repositories. I'm just going to wait for this to install and update. But just remember that there are some updates required, especially if you're trying to use the Veil framework. So let's run the setup again and take note of any repositories or packages that are not found. We'll need to install those packages at a later stage. I noticed one in the initial setup stage. So let's go through and install this to make sure there are no other errors, and we'll look closely for any requirements, any packages that are missing that the Veil framework will require. So again, I'm going to walk you through this process. You will have a very similar screen when you are installing the Veil framework on your machine. Again, I'm taking note, and I suggest you take note of any other packages that are not found that will require you to then manually install later on. I'll show you how we install any missing packages shortly. But for now, I'm just going to wait for this to all download and then install. And once that's installed, we can move on to the next step. This might take a little while, just depending on your processor speed and the internet capabilities, how fast your internet connection is. But hopefully this won't take too long. And as we can see here, that part has been complete. Let's just wait a short while more to see what else is required. It's doing a few more tasks. I haven't seen any more requirements of missing packages, so that's good news. Again, I'm setting this up live. I could have done it beforehand, but I think it's important to show you exactly what is happening on my end. If there are any errors, I want to point those out because you might have similar errors on your end, and you want to know how to handle that so you are not stuck. And we're just waiting for the installation to finish, and then we can move on to the next step. Again, just be patient with the installation. We want to make sure we have a successful Veil framework working, so we can then create these undetectable viruses to show how a hacker would potentially infiltrate a network. Now again, this is in a controlled environment. Everything I'm doing is in a controlled environment. You don't want to run this outside of a controlled environment, because you could run the risk of causing some serious damage to victims' computers, and if you're not careful, your IP address will be tracked and you might get a knock on your door. So you don't want any issues, you don't want any headaches. The last thing you want is to be doing this in a malicious way. It's not something I advocate, and it's shown to you here to give you an idea how a hacker thinks, how a hacker would create something of this nature, and more as an education process only. By knowing how hackers think, by knowing how hackers work, and how they create these malicious types of code, you can potentially go to a corporation and show your ethical hacking skills by being able to understand how the threat occurs. By understanding the mindset of the hacker, understanding the methods and the thinking of the hacker, this becomes an easier task for you. So there are a number of steps required to install the Veil framework. Most people would give up, but the hacker who is persistent will continue down this track. They will install Python, they will install pip, they will then go on to install PyCrypto and all the other requirements for Veil. And as you can see, there are certain packages that may be missing. Again, the serious hacker, the one who wants to cause damage, will go through all the steps to make sure they have the Veil framework working correctly, so they could then create these malicious viruses that are almost impossible to detect by even the best virus scanners out there. So I'm just waiting for this to complete. It is installing some other dependencies. We're almost there. We'll just wait a short while longer and we will have the framework all working for us. Again, I'm leaving this step-by-step process in place so you can actually follow along to make sure that if you encounter any other errors, you can see on my screen and match up exactly where we are and what step we are at, so you can pinpoint errors. So we are looking here and we see there's an X server requirement. So what we can do is to go back to the prompt and we can install it in the following manner: yum install xorg minus x11 minus server minus xorg again, and this time it's installing the X server for us. As we can see here, I need to click yes, and that will download and install and then give us a complete signal that it has been completed. We also may need to install one more package, which is the X Windows system. So let me go ahead and type in a yum install command for that to install this X Windows system. We call it group install. So what it will do is then install this X Windows system for us. And once that has been done, I'll click yes. Just wait for this to download and install. And once that has been installed, we can then arrange to move to the next step. Yes, there are some building blocks required and certain steps to make sure this Veil framework works correctly. I have taken note of any missing packages, but now I want to reboot the server by typing reboot.